Good morning, class. I'm Kevin Barrett, and I'll be starting us off with discussion over dedicated bicycle lanes. A little bit of background. I wanted to get into this topic because whenever I was trying to do some research for this project, I went on to the Dallas City Council website, and from there you can find a bunch of open source shape files. And of those shape files, the one that stood out to me the most were these ones that kind of marked the bicycle lanes within the city. I wanted to take a closer look into these files and plug them into QGIS just to see the accuracy of if they really captured the city's layout of their bike lanes. And there's a little bit of accuracy, some inaccuracy. I can discuss that as I pull up the demonstration whenever I pull up QGIS. But yeah, I just wanted to discuss bicycle lanes because I think that as the population grows, it might be worth looking into to start using bicycles more within big cities. I don't think that bikes should be a huge part of American infrastructure because of the way, well, how big our country is in general, and we definitely need automobiles to transport us for our day-to-day lives. But for some cities, I can see the plausibility for more bicycle lanes. I'm not a huge cyclist myself. I like doing it as a hobby on weekends sometimes, but if I did live in a city that was bicycle friendly, then yeah, count me in. I would love to commute via bicycle if it was plausible. However, in a city like Dallas, where I've lived in since about 2013, I can't see it being that feasible. A lot of the bike lanes within Dallas city limits, they're like these shared lanes, which I'll get into here in a little bit. But all right, let's get started. So why invest in dedicated lanes? I looked onto the Texas Department of Transportation website, and they have a bunch of PDFs that had a bunch of statistics. And as you can see here, about 675 cyclists were killed back in 2020. An estimated 846 cyclists were killed in 2019 prior to the pandemic. So as you can see, between 2019 and 2020, there was a little bit of a drop due to the pandemic. However, in 2020, more than a quarter of those deaths were caused by hit and runs, which is a terrible thing. And then the top four states with cyclist deaths in 2020 were California with 118, Florida with 90, New York with 44 deaths, Texas with 44 deaths, and Louisiana with 34 deaths. Going into Texas auto incidents alone back in 2021, I'm not trying to pick on Texas because it is where my family is from, and I love Texas, but it definitely does increase your blood pressure with how crazy some of the drivers can be, especially on the interstate going north-south. Yeah, I've definitely had many close calls going between Fort Hood and back to Dallas on many weekends, and yeah, you definitely get some gray hairs every time you go back up and forth on that highway. But so going into the auto incidents from 2021, so as you can see, yeah, there were a lot of serious injury crashes in 2021, and so those are just the crashes alone. Within those crashes, you can see the amount of people. So out of all those crashes, over 19,000 people, they all sustained serious injuries, not like minor injuries, but very serious, life-altering injuries. There were no days in 2021 without a roadway death, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. So every day there's well, I guess it's not really mind-blowing. I mean, Texas is a huge state. It's got a giant population, second biggest in the nation. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Texas resident or you live there, you definitely see it yourself. There's like a daily wreck, a daily catastrophe, like some daily fire, and it's just kind of like a everyday thing that we have kind of come to deal with. The death toll for Texas auto incidents was 4,489. Pedestrian fatalities totaled 824, and then bicycle fatalities totaled in the 90. So, kind of going back to my previous slide, in 2020 in Texas, so you see there's there's the 44 deaths, and then going into 2021, there's 90. That is a pretty big skip in numbers. So yeah, I mean, the main purpose of this presentation is to discuss not just how bad Texas drivers are, um, because there's good and bad drivers everywhere, but this is just kind of like a what if we can propose more bicycle lanes within cities, because a lot of these accidents do occur within city limits like Dallas, Killeen area, Austin, Houston. However, also according to the Texas Department of Transportation, a lot of these incidents occur on rural and farm to market roads. A lot of them, it is a depressing amount that are caused by DUI. So I think that if we did implement more bicycle lanes within city limits, like in Austin, Austin has like this huge push to start incorporating more bike lanes within its city. And for those of you that have been there recently, it's pretty evident what they're doing. However, for Dallas, I think there is a lot of room for improvement. A lot of the bike lanes, they're like these like shared lanes that very much so expose the cyclist. Also in Dallas, a lot of the bike lanes that are kind of demarcated on OpenStreetMaps and the Dallas City Council open source shapefiles, a lot of them just coincide with walking and running trails within the city and around parks. So I think that a lot could be done to invest in expanding out those roads and making protected bicycle lanes. So going into the types of bike lanes, let's see, as you can see, there is a normal bike lane right there, which is where you kind of share the road with automobiles. There are buffer lanes, which have that little painted off area, the buffer. And then here are protected lanes, which is what you really want to shoot for, because it has those little traffic pylons that help protect against vehicles. Also, you have bike boulevards, which is huge over in the Netherlands. What's the video I'm going to show you guys here in a second, but yeah, they have just invested so much in their bicycle infrastructure. Yeah, it's something that we can't really do here in the U.S. because America is just so huge, and the Netherlands, it is a tiny country, but it's really cool though what they did with in regards to their bicycle and walking infrastructure, just public transit in general. Of course, those kinds of things, those aren't really doable in America because we are just such a big country. That's why we have the interstate system. And then also, one other thing to talk about in types of bicycle lanes is called the Sharrow. So this is also not the most desirable kind of bike lane. As you can see, you share the street with automobiles, and then over here there's kind of like this off-street shared use trail. For those of you that have been to Dallas before, you all know the Katy Trail. It's like a shared use trail, but however, I think it's primarily better for walking and running down that trail. As we all know, those cyclists can be rather annoying. I mean, that's kind of how cyclists in the States are in general. They're kind of viewed as a nuisance, which, yeah, I can understand, but also, yeah, it's not good to think of our fellow men and women that way. But so it would be kind of cool if throughout the next couple of generations we could kind of change this culture where we think that all cyclists are a nuisance, because in this coming video I'm going to show you the way they do it in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, like Utrecht and other big cities. Cyclists, it's mainly a form of commuting. It's not like this big hobby, this big like expensive rich hobby that you see people in Colorado or Austin take part in. There's no pomp to it. It's just normal everyday people like yourselves and myself, just getting to and from work and trying to get their day dealt with. So another thing I wanted to hit on were some of these points. So evidence shows that protected bike lanes such as these. They improve the economies of surrounding neighborhoods, improve safety, and expand ridership. In 2013, for example, Salt Lake City converted 9 blocks of parking to a protected bike lane. Sales rose by 8.8% for stores located along the bike lane, compared with a 7% increase citywide. So, New York City, their injury rates for all road users, including drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists, typically decreased by 40 to 50% in areas where the city implemented those protected bike lanes. In Montreal, Canada, streets with protected bike lanes had 28% lower injury rates than other streets on average. So that's pretty wild when you think about New York City, the most populated city in the United States and, like the world's megacity when you think about it. I mean, a 40 to 50% decrease in, just pedestrian, cyclist, and driver injury rates, that's huge. And then also, in some places, the implementation of protected bike lanes increased ridership. From 2009 into 2014, bicycle commuting doubled in New York City and Washington, D.C., both of which had built relatively large networks of protected bike lanes. And then also, one explanation for the ridership increase, it might be a greater feeling of security when using the improved infrastructure. In the San Francisco Bay Area, a majority of drivers and cyclists surveyed felt most comfortable on roads with greater separation between cars and bicycles. Which, yeah, when you think about that, I mean, that's definitely no brainer. I mean, I don't feel the safest whenever I share the road with a bunch of drivers, especially whenever I'm back in Texas, or, I mean, even when I grew up in Kentucky, back in Ashland, Kentucky, the eastern part, it's very rural and isolated. There are just no places to ride your bicycle besides your typical suburban neighborhoods. And I mean, you can ride it everywhere. As a child, I definitely did, but it can definitely be sketchy. You might go down the wrong holler, and some hillbilly might come chasing after you with a gun. But that's a conversation for another time. And here I wanted to show you this cool video on Dutch bicycle infrastructure. Let's see if the sick puppy will load. Oh. Come on. Might see that I'm screen recording this, so bear with me one moment. Come on. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, never mind. Yeah, it can detect if you are recording. So, one moment. Let me pause this video.